Okay, this is now the 5-minute tarot for the 11th of April 2017. And a few minutes ago, I picked a card and I got the Queen of Batons. So I thought, okay, today's going to be about the Queen of Batons. And then I was thinking, I don't want to just say the usual stuff about court cards or people, but I was thinking about or wondering about, we've got 4 court cards, the King, the Queen, the Knight and the Page. And why do we need court cards anyway? Because we've got major trumps and minor trumps. Why do we have cards that represent people? Because any card can represent an individual and a personality and a way of behaving and a way of acting and so on. So we've got 16 court cards. We've got 4 court cards for each suit. And I was thinking about the number 4. And how maybe we've got 4 seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And I thought maybe we can relate the court cards to the 4 seasons. But then I thought, okay, we have 4 seasons in the West, but in the East, I don't think they do. In India, there's a monsoon season, which isn't the same. And I think they've got 3 seasons in India. So we can't, I think the tarot ought to be universal. So it ought to talk about or give information about things that happen or that can happen everywhere. So the idea of there being 4 seasons applies in, let's say, North America and in Europe, but it doesn't apply in India and probably in other parts of the world as well. So we can't, 4 is no good for seasons. But then I thought the one thing that applies everywhere is you've got sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight. And that, no matter where you are, that we're dealing with that regularly. So we've got sunrise that you can see, right? You can look out the window or be outside. You can see when it's sunrise. You can see noon, right? Because you get the sun's directly overhead. You can see sunset because the sun is setting and you get twilight. But then you've also got midnight, but we can't see midnight. You need some kind of clock or some kind of measuring device to understand when midnight is. So let's say I was thinking about, okay, we have the King, the Queen, the Knight, and the Page, and we've got sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight. Which court card goes with what time of day? Because it's different. The time of day, sunrise is a time of beginnings and energy and getting started. Noon is different. Sunset is you're winding the work day is finished, let's say, and you're winding down and maybe you're going out in the evening. And midnight is maybe you're going to sleep or you're going to bed or you're whatever you're doing at midnight. So today I'm giving you something to think about, and I'm going to give you what answer I would choose today, but it can be useful for you to think about because it'll give you ideas about what sense to make of kings, queens, knights, and pages. Because I'm thinking the night belongs with sunrise, because somehow knights are active and they get things going and they bring change and they bring messages and they act, and it seems to relate in some way or to be similar to the activity and the energy at the beginning of the day. It doesn't matter about the suit at this point. It's more the character of the individual. So let's say we've got the knight representing sunrise in some kind of a way. What other information would you derive about knights from thinking sunrise and the night go together? But even though you may decide that some other court card relates better to sunrise, I'm just giving you one version, one possible version. So I'm thinking, okay, knights are sunrise. So we've got dynamism and energy and enthusiasm. I'm thinking of the beginning of the day. Okay, which court card do we use for noon when the sun's directly overhead? Let's think of a hot sunny day in summertime and the sun's overhead. It can be too hot. It can be, you can feel tired out by the heat of the sun. And I think the noon position belongs with the king. Somehow the king sitting on his throne, lording it over other people, having power, being able to heat situations or give it life, and so on. That seems to relate in some way to the king, sitting up there directly overhead, controlling things. There's more, but this is a 5-minute video. And then we've got sunset, and somehow I have to go with the Queen at sunset, because I'm thinking sunset is the end of the day. You go home, you're having dinner, the mother's there. This is maybe doesn't apply so much anymore, but it's just the idea of and I'm not being sexist and I'm not having roles, but it's just the idea of comfort and relaxation and togetherness. And people, when I eat dinner, I sit and usually watch some kind of TV show, and I don't like to speak when I eat, because when you're eating, if you speak and eat at the same time, you can't chew properly, and you end up taking a mouthful and swallowing it, and it's really awkward to talk. But lots of people like to sit around a dinner table and converse about the day and talk and reminisce and talk about what went wrong and what went right and comfort each other and all the rest of it. And that kind of social interaction and happiness seems to belong in some way with the Queen. Okay, even though it may be a little bit idealized, the picture I'm painting, because in reality, people maybe go home and, but think about, even if you're on your own and you go home and you put something in a microwave and then you sit down, what do you think about? How do you behave? What do you act like when you're sitting where you're on a couch or at a table with something to eat, and maybe you're thinking about the day? How does that relate in some way to the Queen? And then we've got the page. All that we've got left is the page, and I think that goes with midnight, partly because at midnight it's dark and maybe it's unformed and you don't quite know what tomorrow will bring, and maybe you're a little bit doubtful or fearful, or you wish things had been different, and so there can be a certain amount of anxiety or a certain amount of it can be peace and tranquility as well, because you're glad you've been through the day. You're glad to have survived, and you're going to relax, and you're going to do some deep breathing before you go to bed, before you go to sleep. And ideally, you're going to have nice dreams. So it's a bit like the atmosphere or the activity and the behavior of the page. In some way, I think at this point anyway, at least today, I can see it connecting with midnight. Also, I've got things I'm not saying about midnight, so you can have your own ideas about how would you think about, how would you describe midnight. So imagine like you've got you're describing sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight to somebody else who isn't familiar with those times of day. How would you personally describe the atmosphere at each of these definite turning points at times of day? And then how would you relate differences between the king, the queen, the knight, and the page to the differences between sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight? That is it. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to talk about astrology, numerology, and the tarot, and what we can or should do with them together. Anyway, so I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.